What's up, everyone, and welcome back to Replay Works, and welcome back to the Replay Review. So this is going to be a little bit of an awkward period because we are still in regional season, and yet we are also awaiting the arrival of the second booster set for Gundam card game, right? But we did get the ST05, the introduction of Purple, in the recent weeks, and we did have a regional about it, right? And we're going to have another regional coming up with Canada on the horizon. So I figure it's time to get back into the swing of things and do the replay reviews, just like I used to do. And then eventually it will lead us into the next set. So without further ado, let's go ahead and talk about the LA regionals. So this one is quite a controversial top placing because of the mulligan done by the second place Xeon Aggro player. But to go 9-1 all the way, and there's no top cut in this tournament, so it's just straight standings. It's still, without a doubt, all amazing feats by all these players. So with that being said, we have first place. The person that ended up winning was a green-white player, followed by two blue-greens with the Xeon Aggros, and then we actually had a fourth place finish by a blue-purple list. So that's quite a testimony to show you, like, A, Rush is still around, and B, green-white is still going to be a strong contender no matter which way you look at it. No matter what tournament you go to, it's always going to be a deck that is prevalent. I would say it's a very safe deck to choose. Nothing wrong with it. It's one of those decks that it can go toe-to-toe against aggro or against the other blocker decks. So just be prepared for that, and of course now be prepared for aggro, because as I've seen, it is still able to place. Alright, so let's look at all the overall combinations, right? So we got 5 white greens, 5 green blues. So yeah, goes out saying the Rush deck and the most favored deck to enter a tournament are the top two. But then we have the usual contenders, blue white and red blue, with the sole fourth place blue purple making it into the top 16, right? So keep that in mind. This is definitely going to change as we start to see more and more events pop up, especially when we get to the second set. But for this right now, it's still good snapshot of the meta. Nothing crazy happened here. Purple, we kind of knew was, at least one of them had to sneak through, since it is another version of an aggro deck. As I talked about on the channel, it's right now the only way to play it is aggressively, just because of what was given in the starter deck. But again, aggro is still around. Gotta prepare for that. Alright. And then this overall colors played. We're gonna include this metric. Just we had the one little purple here, just to see like what colors combinations are being played. In this case, 11 blue, 10 green, 8 white, 2 red, and 1 purple. So red is still the unfavored color as of right now. Again, I'm gonna keep mentioning this, but next set, I'm hoping to see a shift up. It's gonna be interesting to see where the meta changes with all the new cards, especially for red when they get new cyber new type support. And I think that's gonna absolutely shift out which decks are gonna be in the top, right? But for now, we'll keep going. So let's look at the first place deck list, right? A lot of standard stuff here from usual green-white list, right? The key difference: there is no Death Scythe, there is no Duo, there is no Wu Fei, there's no other Operation Meteor pilots except for Hiroyui and his Wing Gundam units, right? This deck favors more of the blocker support, with the extra space given to Sword Strike Gundam, and I think that is, in the Swiss rounds, that is what's going to determine the matchups against the Rush decks, against the aggro decks when they're going to put down the little 2/2 weenies or whatever have you. That Sword Strike, getting that on against that matchup is almost a done deal to end the game, or to swing the game to your favor and proceed to end the game, because you're just going to drop Wing Gundam. Or even like Big Freedom, right? So it's kind of a mix of how the Freedom blocker deck runs with how the Wing Gundam package works, right? It's not too focused on ramped, it's just focusing on taking the game slow, getting a lot of good value with your guys, but still having the ability to link as soon as turn 4 starts, and go build your board from there, right? And I think the fact that we also see one Mulaflaga here allows the Sword Strike Gundam to even have that 5th pilot if you need it in a pinch. I think other choices like the 3 striker packs is also really good because again, you get more blockers out in the field as you need it. It means that you can essentially play 7, 9, 12, 14. You're playing you're playing 17 blockers with the striker pack, and it's a little bit more flexible since it's a burst, so it gets to be treated as a quote-unquote base when it's hit out of the shield. So it makes sense to not max out on launcher strike or max out on air strike, and instead devote those extra slots to the striker pack to have extra burst chances. Since the 2/4 is gonna the 2/4 playing it from your hand is good, but the 3/3 coming out of shield is way more important than seeing a 3rd or 4th launcher strike come out. What else we got? We got 2 unforeseen incidents. I think this card is one of the things that's they have one floating. It's always either gonna bluff it if they can play it or not, but it's a card that can definitely get you huge value in a in a Wing Zero trade war, especially, or if they're trying to trade into your Sword Strike. If they try to do exact, unforeseen allows you to kind of fade that battle and let you keep the Sword Strike, so it allows you to keep the strong link units in play while your opponent they may get caught off guard in an unforeseen incident, if you will. But yeah, I like this deck is possibly one of the decks that decided to say no, we're not going to play the Death Scythe or any of that stuff. We're just going to focus on good stuff and essentially answer the meta itself, using Sword Strike, having more blockers, having that flexibility to be able to pivot into a freedom blocker deck for a little bit, and then pump out the Wing Gundams as needed, right? And I think Bird Mode also here is there to help create that little bit of a ramp. If it's going first, it's a really good on curve strat. Since you go first, you go Zwart, turn 2, turn 3 Bird Mode. You still have a blocker up, so you're not getting mollywobbed so far, right? And then you can go turn 5, you start to have the Sword Strike, and then the next turn you go a turn early into Wing Gundam with the Hero Link, right? So it does help bridge that gap. Since Wing Gundam plus Hero, you only need 5 to do that, and you're gonna have 5 by then, and still keep the EX resource just in case, so you can use unforeseen or whatever. But this is one of those decks where it definitely took a different approach. I would say I would look at it and say, like I mentioned earlier, it took the half of the freedom blockers that work for it, and then took the half that's the strongest parts of green and just put them together, and here we are. All right, so here comes the breakdowns, right? Let's go back to do these. All right, so out of the 5 white-green decks that are around, we have an average of 26.6 units in the deck, 10.4 pilots, 8.2 commands, 4.4 bases, and less than 1 command / pilot, so that's gonna be Mulaflaga, right? So we are looking to, we're shying away from the 5 to 6 bases. We're going down to 4 to 5 bases, right? So depending on what the build is, you're either playing Archangel as the 5th base, but you're definitely playing the Underground Desert base as your 4 of, because it's just the 06 base in this deck. It just helps it be defensive, helps survive. Definitely a lot of command cards, and the pilot cards definitely a lot more than I think we were used to. Well, actually, no, before we probably really saw around 10 to 11. So it's keeping in pace that the deck needs to see a lot of pilots. First place deck is an anomaly since it only played 8, right? It only played Hero and Kira, but the rest of them, if they're playing a standard list, Kira, Duo, Hero, should be around 11, right? Maybe 12. Actually, might possibly be one deck was playing 12 based on this average. But I think that's still within the range that we have seen before. All right, and then the average cards for the units in the deck, right? So between 3 and 4 Zwarts, nothing too crazy there. 3 is probably the right move, since that extra slot frees up an extra space for something like another striker pack, for example. For level 3s, it's between 5 and 6, mostly 5. So Lifrith and possibly Bird Mode for the most part. Level 4s, we got between 3 and 4. So, Launcher Strike is starting to show its, show its use here and there. Sword Strike, of course. But most decks only would have space for either or. That's the key difference between the other normal decks and then the first place deck, right? It was opting to play both. And 5, it's Ale Strike, so mostly lean towards 4. In this case, first place deck opt to play 3. And then level 6s, wow. Yeah, 6 to 7, mostly 7 on this side, so that's your Death Sights, and that's your Wing Gundams, right? And then the 0.4 is really just the 2 Freedoms that the first place deck played, which says a lot, which means that, that first place deck was playing something that none of the other decks that made it into top 16 were playing at all. Yeah, and they were focusing on a different strategy than the rest of them. Then 8, wow, most decks were playing 8. Oh, sorry, for level 8, they're playing 4 Wing Gundam Zeros, which is quite a lot, but quite necessary in the aggro matchups. It's a card that, in this, if you have access to green, if you're playing this type of deck, minimum 3, depending on the meta, you go to 4. Really no right or wrong choice there. Probably 4 might be accurate if you're playing a much slower deck. If you're not too focused on on ramping hard, you're playing a slower game, you have more time to bring out the pace of the game, let them put out guys on board, blow them up. But I don't really think you're gonna. I mean, it's just there to see it. If you're not playing Path to Victory Defeat, the 4 also makes sense just to go up to that much, right? All right. So let's look at the unit breakdowns. We'll have this here for a second, just for here. Definitely going to be more useful as we start to see the new cards next set, or as we look at some of the other new decks of the blue-purple deck. But again, part of my standard package to always give this information here. It just shows us what average threshold we're starting to expect and what the numbers are starting to curve out. All right, so we got the second place deck, which is the blue-green Xeon Rush deck, and this deck is a lot different, mainly because it's playing the Rick Doms. I'll talk about that in a second. It's not playing any of the 1/2 Zaku 1s or Dops or anything like that. It's only playing 1 Shars Galgook. It's only playing 3 ST01 Gundams. And it's only playing 2 Shore Resolves, right? But this deck overall, you can look at this and say, this deck has a really strong game plan. If starting out where it's playing 16 1-drops at level 2, right? And it's got the Zaku 2s, it's got the GM, and the gun tanks, right? Gun tanks and Anxas, after playing them in my blue-purple deck, I see how they're a really good tempo swing type card. Ideally, you wouldn't want to play them that early, but they're there for when your opponent has any rested unit and you're able to just put down 3 of these guys or 2 of these guys on the board and then blow up their unit. You have you're gonna have a huge board compared to being able to trade without even attacking their board, right? So I like the gun tanks and the Anxas are some fantastic cards for this type of deck, especially to regain momentum on the field. Of course, we got the Char Zaku 2 packages, right? The link units for them. The Char Zaku 2 from the starter deck, it only really has 21, 23, 20. I don't count the one that it is, so 23 targets in the deck, which is it's a good amount. It shouldn't need to play less. That's why the Rick Doms are there instead of Rezos, just because Rick Doms are there for a separate reason because it's got breach, but the Char Zaku 2 has enough targets in the deck. You don't need to go overdose on 30 Xeon units. I think 20 plus is good enough. Is what his deck is playing. So you do have enough to do link stuff with Char early on, as early as turn 3, which is what we want, and then proceed to just use the other Zaku 2s there just to be in the deck as needed, and eventually lead up to maybe using a Galgoo for endgame. But because it's only playing 1 Galgoo, it's not actually fully reliable. It's not fully reliable. It's not relied on as the ender. It's just there, I would say, in a pinch, because it's one of those cards where like, you see multiple in your hand, it kind of sucks. Like you don't ever want to use this on turn 4, unless it's or turn 5, unless it's to end the game. If they're on turn 4, I think it's just it's better practice to put down like Angsha, like 2 Angshas or 2 Angsha and 2 gun tanks, right? Just to blow up something and get a huge board and try to push for game, and then use the Galgoog to end the game. Alright, so we got Rick Dom. Rick Dom here, it's got Breach 2, which is really good aggressive momentum against other aggro decks. So what this means is that if you put down Rick Dom, and let's say you go, I don't know, let's say you go second, right? You put down Rick Dom on your turn 2 when you're at level 3, and they have a guy on the board. You know, they're not incentivized to swing now because your Rick Dom can just blow up whatever 2/2 or Zaku 2 they play, and then proceed to breach a shield, right? Because we're under the assumption that when you have this Rick Dom, you're going to be able to use the Char Zaku 2 or Link, or if you have the Zaku 2 that gets plus 2 AP to deal damage, deal enough damage to EX base and pop it, right? And then Rick Dom from here can proceed to clean up the board and also be efficient and deal damage to the shield at the same time, thus getting you a little bit more tempo in that sense where your opponent now is losing resources and they're losing life at the same time. And that's a huge shift, especially if it's like a check against other aggro decks. I think that's possibly like one of the strongest suits for Rick Dom to play. And the same can be said for other decks that might have played Makuve. There's decks of those flowing around still, where they are playing Makuve for the breach, and it makes sense. You want to use that. You use your guys to clean up their guys, especially in the aggro mirror, because then you don't lose out on the aggro mirror by cleaning up the board. You're actually getting huge advantage in that sense. And Angsha gun tank, same thing. I mentioned it's just a great tempo shift as soon as you're able to put down enough to pop something on the board, and then your opponent has to deal with these guys now, or not, and then you just get 3 free attacks, right? So 3 ST01 Gundams is something that's, to me, interesting, because I've always been a proponent of like playing 4, just because the when paired is really good. But looking at the rest of the cards on the list, you can see that it really, it's either you play the 3 Gundams or you play 3 Angshas, and I think Angsha actually is just generally better. If you don't have the extra pilot for Gundam, it does suck to play. Earlier, in early builds, I used to play 3 is for the same reasons, because like the other units can put so much more pressure on the board, right? So 3 Gundams, very notable. From here, Shamro's fine. 8, it's fine, it makes sense. 4 Corsica, man, that's like always wanting to see Corsica in your hand, especially on turn 3, which is to me also very interesting. Yeah, I look at that and like say, okay, that's personally, I will end up drawing 3 every single game. So I feel like I don't like 3. I don't like more than 3 in the deck, but I respect 4 because I know that you can get it in your hand at least once, so you can get the Tallgeist and maybe get out of shield at least once, right? So it's always like the 4th copy does matter in these games, right? My personal bias aside, 4 makes sense. It's possibly the only like base that works with this deck the way it is, just because it's very aggressive, right? And then 2 Show Resolves, that one might be controversial to some people. 3 might be the sweet spot, but 2 is fine. And this deck, you're meant for a quick time, not for a long time. So the 2 Show Resolves are just there in case things go absolutely off the rails wrong, and you do need to get the extra draw power in. But if things happen correctly and you see the pallets on time, there's really no need to play any more than 2, to be honest. And no other actions from here, right? All right, let's look at the breakdowns. Man, I love looking at these lists because it's always funny, because we always get like 35 plus units, so a vast majority of the deck is units, so 36 to 37, huge amount, makes sense. 8 pilots has always been the standard, unless there's someone running Makuve or Sayla randomly. 4 bases, flat, across these 5 decks. 4 is the average, 4 is what you get. And then your command cards, like 2, right? It's either They're playing Show Resolve, either 2 or 3 capacity, and then that's it. Nothing else. No siege play, no intercept orders, none of that. Only Show Resolve. And it makes sense. It's a very focused list. It's meant to just go helmet on, cards on board, start swinging as soon as the game starts. Right. And I think that's the deck's main like core strategy, and it works. It still works. It'll be a very strong contender, especially again at a 10-round regional event. All right. So average cards per level for the units, right? We have some decks that are playing the Zaku ones, and that is just a few and far between. We'll see that there. No DOPs, forget that. I didn't see any single DOP on the list. Zaku 1 supremacy all the way. And it makes sense. It's a 1/2. It's much better statted than DOP. Honestly, after playing the last revision of that deck, man, DOP sucks. I don't like it. I can't. I can see why GMs are played. GMs are, as you can see, we have 15 to 16 level 2s. GM comes in to be that extra 2/2 support, and again, after playing it on Blurple, it makes sense. I think it's you just want to see those guys on board, see the extra the extra 2/2 body as soon as you hit level 2, so you can put down 2 guys. I think it's makes perfect sense. Level 3, we have, looks like we've all agreed on across these 5 decks to play 12. So, other decks, if they're playing the Rick Doms, they're playing the Rick Doms, or they're playing the Rezos. Either way, it's definitely going to be the 8 Char Zaku 2s for sure. I think that's what we've kind of started seeing solidified. And the level 4s, so this was getting interesting. We see the rise of Angshas, we see less Char's Gelgoogs played, we see anywhere between 3 and 4 Gundams played. So we got like 8 to 9 depending on the deck, but then that's it. I think you could probably play like 4 Angsha, 1 Char's Gelgoog, and 3 Gundam. No, sorry, 4 Gundam. Or if you want, you can go down on the Gundam. But I think 4 Angsha is possibly the best level 4 for the deck. Just because of the tempo shift it does. All right. Here's your breakdowns. And that's why if you look at the level 1s, that's why I said it was Zaku 1 all the way, because we see that it's 1/2. Level 2. It's actually kind of funny how that one turns out in terms of the average, because the Zaku 2 is 1 AP, just kind of drags that down, but with also gun tank, so it's kind of funny how it ends up being 1.5. And then from here, everything else is pretty standard. Like I said, the numbers just work out in the sense that it's pretty much the same stat line repeated over and over and over again. All right, and now this is gonna be the last deck we're gonna talk about. It is the 4th place Blurple deck, or blue purple. This deck is very, I want to say it's more mid-range than aggro, but man, it can definitely, because it doesn't need to immediately put on the helmet and put guys on board and go unga bunga as turn 1, because you have the suppression. You can answer the board, and then suppression will catch you up and let you win later on. As if they're at 4 shields, that's functionally they're at 3 shields. And that 4 shields is you break the EX base, poke once, and they play the second base, right? So let's talk about this list. There's a lot of stuff here, and I've done the blue purple deck list on the channel. So there's a lot of cards here that are different from what I would play, and we just see only because of, like, again, we only have, I think these are the best these are the best purple cards that we have in the deck, right? It's not Akihiro with Iron and Blood or the Gujin, right? These are the best ones that you have, best ones that we get, right? So right off the bat, we have 8 2/2s. Makes sense. Want to be aggressive. It's similar to how the red, blue, green works, where you see those 2/2s. You see those maxed out. We got 4 gun tanks. Also similar logic to blue red. You have those here. You want to see them in Angsha, right? Angsha's there in the list as well. So you can deal incidental ping damage, and if you're playing a deck that can just poke for any extra damage with, like, for example, this one has Mikazuki, it does help. It does help those numbers go up to threshold numbers. All right. We got 2 gun cannons. This is what I call the just in case of aggro decks use it. Aside from that, it's just there as another link for Amuro. And also, technically, if you pair it with Amuro and they have a Zawart Lifter from the field or Zawart anything else blocker, you can just rest both of them. So it does help wall break those blockers as well. We have the functional 6 Rezels. The Hyakurin's the same stat as Rezel, so I just call them that. And in this deck, there's no distinction between blue and purple color cards, honestly, because there's no Sayla. So, functional Rezel 6. That is because if you were to play 8, you wouldn't be playing Barbaros's second form. So, take out 2 of the Hyakurins, and you play 2 second forms. Makes sense? It's one of those things where, Barbaros's second form is, if you look at it, it's another functional Rezel, but it links with Mikazuki. When you link it, it's going to become a 6-4, which is an insane stat line that early in the game, right? So that's just how I explain that. Can't go wrong either way. I know a lot of people like the second form 2 of. I have been warming up to it recently, from what my friends are telling me about the plays you can do with it. So, I follow the logic. I just haven't had a chance to test it out yet. Next up, 3 Anxas. I think 3 Anxas, 4 gun tank is, that's the bare minimum of what you can play. It's either you play 7 or you play 8. I think that's like the absolute lowest amount of these 2 cards you're gonna play. Then we have 4 ST01 Gundams. This card is what makes the deck able to just go burr, because it's going to give everyone the +1 attack. Allows everything here. It's similar to red, blue decks. The Gundam helps you reach threshold numbers and then just push for absolute board supremacy and absolute game, right? So that +1 attack really matters here. Borrow second form, talked about that. Huge stat line as early if you can pull off Mikazuki. I would say never put this down unless you have the Mikazuki to pair with him. Otherwise, he's just going to be kind of a 2-4 sitting there. I think it as a link is just way more utility, because you can smash through any single base. So I would treat it like how I would treat Char, right? If I'm going to try to link to Char, I'm going to use it to smash a base. Alright, then we got 4th form. 4th form here is the key card of the new suppression mechanic. It is our first taste of this card, of this mechanic. It is fantastic as a mechanic. It is very well balanced compared to security attack from Digimon. And it is also very momentum shifting, because again, you're going to deal 2 damage at the same time. They got to flip it up at the same time. And, if they get a base out of it, great. They do 3 damage. Ooh. So this card here also helps enable getting threshold numbers, because it does have deployability, which allows you to deal 1 damage to something on the field. It gets +1 AP for the turn. I guess you can make the argument that you could put down a second form and then put down a 4th form the turn after to make it 5-3. Yeah, you make it 5-3. It's, again, functional Rezel, if you will. But three of these make sense. You don't need to see 4. 4 is a lot. 4 is going to help you brick, so we're trying to avoid that. 3 makes sense because you only want to see this guy once, because that is when the game should end. Then we got 4 Amuro, 4 Mikazuki, done. No other pilots, great. Now, the bases, this is what I really like. 3 Corsicas, I'm a fan of that. You know me, I don't like playing more than 4 because I know I'm going to draw them all. But the 1 Nahel Argama actually does help this deck a lot, because you can use Mikazuki to put something down to 3 HP, then use the Nahel Argama to tap it down, and then you can use the gun tanks and the Anxas to just outright destroy it from there. Or it can come out of burst, stop an aggro deck. Perfectly fine from there. Great. I looked at this before in other decks. It didn't jive with me because there's no blocker that natively has 3 HP. That's the thing with me, right? And in this deck, there's nothing in this deck that can deal damage to an active unit except for Mikazuki, right? So Mikazuki can make something go down to 3, and then Nahal Argama can get it cleared out of the way. So you're not wasting slots on trying to play like a Siege ploy or something, and you're still able to set up a base. That's why I really like this card in this type of deck, just because it has a lot of synergy. As a one-of, it's fine. It doesn't need to be any more than that, because that one-of can help turn the tide of the game, right? So we got 3 show resolves. 3 is perfect in this deck. 4 is way too many, and 2 is too little, because you are going to be putting down your hand a lot, and you are playing a more mid-rangey type deck, so you're not. It's not like the Xeon deck where you can get away with 2. You do want to play a little bit more just so you can get that draw chance as we go towards the turn 6, right? Maybe turn 7, depending on what's been happening in the game. 2 Fatal Strikes. Fatal Strike is a card that is a huge deterrent against Lifrits, Zawarts, tokens. It has a lot of utility. I respect it. I really do. I think it's going to be fantastic to literally wall break these blockers, because it is the only thing in the game that can destroy them outright. For two in the deck, it's perfect. I think 2 in the deck makes it where you're not going to see it that often, but it's not going to brick in your hand. So you just need to see the 1 at any given point in any of the turns after turn 4. Even on turn 4, turn 5. Well, turn 4 if you do the Amuro play, it's better for momentum. But turn 5, if they try to stabilize with their blockers again, you fail strike it out. Especially if they have multiple Lifrits on the field, you just fail strike 1. If they somehow pair anything to the guy that is level 3 or less, you fatal strike it out. You get a good 2 for 1 there, and that's the real power of this card, where it allows you to do that type of trade without even going to damage step. And they haven't. It's not even because of the way the game works, they can't respond to it, so it's just dead, right? In that case, it's a great card for those instances. All right, and the last card, Intercept Orders. I tried this before in blue-green, didn't make much sense in blue-green. I thought it was like, oh, it's just only there to stop aggro decks, right? In this deck, similar to Nahal Argama, same thing. If you have Mikazuki, this card allows you to tap down units that have 4. They go down to 3 HP. You can Intercept Orders them down, and then proceed to wall break, right? If you look at it in a different light, similar to how I said that the Gun Tank plus Amuro is a way to tap down 2 units, specifically Zawart and Lifrit, Mikazuki plus Intercept Orders is the same function, right? It does allow you to do that, and technically if you're at 5, you can actually get, you get the Barbaro's second form link into Mikazuki into Intercept Orders. You have a link unit, it's turn 5, so maybe you have 4 guys on the board previously if you hit everything on curve, so then you can just start smashing from there, right? I am a fan of this card. You don't the time you play it and you time to do it for the wall break ability or wall break strat is the time that game is going to be the final shift between they're at 5 or 6 shields, now they're going to be at 1 shield. Or against the aggro deck, it's going to completely shut down their entire turn, which allows you to then clean up the board with your guys. Again, this card and Nahal Argama makes so much more sense in this deck than any other deck previously. Alright, so let's look at the breakdown, right? Since we only have 1 deck, we can use clean numbers, right? So we have 32 units, 8 pilots, 6 commands, 4 bases, right? Very reminiscent of, again, of the red-blue decks, right? Not too many on either side of the pilots or the commands. 6 is just a fair number, right? 8 pilots, that's all you want to stay at. And the 4 bases, right? Before, I talk about red-blue a lot because it's the closest comparison. That would play 4 Vasiliuses, right? 4 bases. In this case, we have Axis, we play Corsica, and Nahal Argama for a little bit of synergy here. Absolutely fine. But I think 4 it makes sense rather than 5 or 6. 5, playing 6 and drawing Isaribis out the wazoo, it's quite a lot. It's quite a lot, right? And you don't want to see bases, you want to see units. And I think that's what this deck is trying to do. I think it's a fantastic deck. So average cards per level. This is it's been a while since I brought out all the colors for this, but 12 level 2s, 8 level 3s for units, with the 4 bases being level 3 Korskas, right? All of the commands are level 4, so that's all 6 of them. All the pilots are level 4, all 8 of them. Then we do have the combination of Angsha, Gundam, and Barbaros's second form for your 9 slot. And then, last but not least, your level 6 slot is your 4th form, right? There. So, and then last but not least, here's our AP costs breakdowns, right? A bit on the high side as soon as we go to level 3s because of the functional resils. Even the second form, don't let it be fooled. It is more HP than AP on the card, but it's really, again, it's functional resol. It's gonna help push those numbers. But I think the most important thing to know is that most of the deck is 2 costs, except for Gundam and 4th form. So you're able to just put units on the board early. You put so many good static units. You put down 4 3s, you put down 2 2s. You're able to swarm the board. You have the gun tank Angsha tempo plays. So it really does, like these APs and HPs, it really does just matter for you to play the deck so you can break through walls, right? But from here, this is the first time we're seeing purple. Just wanted to represent this in the stats line. As we get other purple cards that aren't just resils, we're going to start seeing some other metrics from here. But yeah, that's it for the LA regionals. Also getting back into the swing of doing these replay reviews, since we did do a bit of a hiatus just because of ST05 release weekend. There weren't any big events after the debacle of Texas. So yeah, I wanted to just do this real quick to get back and talk about some stats and talk about some decks, just to reflex that muscle. But for now, we got 2 weeks before the release of the next set, and that's when things are going to be amazing to talk about. It's going to be a lot of new stuff to talk about, and I won't be saying the words green white every now and then, unless I do, and then at that point the meta has not changed, and I really hope that's not the case because there's so many cool things coming up. But that being said, thank you everyone for listening. We'll see you in the next one.